and salutations, fellow eaten frog eggs. It is I, Eric J. Chucky, joined as always by the boy.
Hey.
This is the Two Nerds Podcast, and I've been devoured by a small green child. Good night, everybody!
Oh, this podcast is about Season 2 of the Disney Plus Star Wars show, The Mandalorian. We did a podcast on Season 1, I'm fairly certain.
We did a Mandalorian versus Rise of Skywalker podcast, I believe. Because what is there to say
we wanted
about
to be happy about something.
that, and what is there to say about Season 1 of The Mandalorian other than it good you watch?
To be fair, this podcast could also just be it good you watch. But we do have some stuff to say.
I went on a bit of a journey with this one, I will admit.
So, why don't we let the listener in on sort of how our journey went with The Mandalorian, with Season 2, with the continuing adventures of Din Djarin, and, as is revealed throughout the course of the series, Grogu. Oh, by the way, there are spoilers for Season 2 of The Mandalorian in this podcast. Deal with it, or turn it off, honestly.
But first, like and subscribe.
Like, subscribe, don't click the bell.
I don't.
But
why would you guys... You know what? Comment below explaining to me why the fuck you would click the bell.
we upload basically the same day, have every day for years.
I mean, we change the day sometimes, but...
Sometimes we will change the day, but that's on the order of once every couple years. If you're interested, you're here. But this is a good season of this. I maintain what I said during our Star Wars movie retrospective. Mandalorian's the best Star Wars movie.
It's a series. Like, that's a good line. It's a good line, but it's not a movie.
No, it's a series. It's also the best Star Wars movie. If you'd like, we can break it up into 2.5-hour chunks and call it the best Star Wars movies.
I don't know if I'd agree with that. I feel like... but I do agree with the sentiment of what you're saying. I just don't think they're as comparable. Like, when you get right down to it, just because of pacing and delivery and, you know...
Memes aside, The Mandalorian can only be as good as it is because of the stuff that preceded it. If we didn't already like Star Wars, The Mandalorian wouldn't be as good. We wouldn't have that inherent buy-in. I think it's good for people who don't otherwise like Star Wars. As a matter of fact, I fucking know it is, because one of the people in this show hated Star Wars before he was in this show, and now he likes it. So, like, I know it can work for people who aren't into it, but for me, already liking Star Wars and wanting to see it treated well with a modicum of respect is part of the reason I love this show. Because Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau were very open about the fact that when they're writing the show, they basically feel like kids with all of the Star Wars toys, and they get to whack them together and scream. And yeah, sometimes it be like that. Sometimes it do, and that's real good.
There is one thing I want to get out in front of here. It was different from last year, but not better. So last year, The Mandalorian premiered, and everybody was enamored with the Yodito. So every time his adorable round face appeared on screen, you could bet your sweet ass that within 2 hours, Facebook and whatever other social media you aggregate on was going to be flooded with brand new screenshots of this little shit doing something cute, bottom text.
Basically, yes, entirely. And that's, part of the medium. It's on Disney Plus. It's on a place where you can easily capture the screen and make GIFs and pictures, and that makes it much easier to make the bottom text.
And I was annoyed with it at the time because it wasn't spoilers, but it was like,
I would like to have experienced this cuteness naturally, and you have robbed that of me.
Well, and it's just so much. Like, rarely have I seen the internet take a joke and destroy it within 48 hours.
Then you haven't been on the internet very long.
I'm on a different internet, as we have discussed.
But, like,
This year, I had different problems because we weren't doing that. Instead, it was within 72 hours, someone was posting spoilers.
And you somehow always managed to catch them, and I literally never did. And it's not like I was catching The Mandalorian like I was staying up late on Thursday night to catch it as soon as it was available. No, I'd sometimes wait till Saturday afternoon. The only reason I didn't wait longer than that is because for most of the season I was DMing a Star Wars game, and I didn't want to go into a Star Wars game with Star Wars that I could have watched that I didn't, because why would I just leave that material on the table?
When I watched most of The Mandalorian first season, I watched it in chunks. I'm not a binge watcher, but, sometimes I'd like to watch more than one episode at a time, especially if it's kind of cliffhangery.
I say I am. I was a binge watcher, but given my druthers, I don't know that I would be at this point. I have developed some serious Gen Z attention span.
This year I couldn't do that. Unless I just wanted to know all of the guest characters and what happened.
Yeah, you had to be on the train, otherwise you were going to get fucking put in front of the train.
And that put extra duress on my viewing experience, and I was aware of it at the time. Like, I don't function well when I'm given a deadline to do something for my own entertainment. You know what I mean? Like, if it's like, do this for work, all right, sure, whatever. If it's a personal goal I set, fine, that's not a big deal.
But there is, in this world, no quicker way to make you not like something than look at you and go, watch this now. Even if it's something you would otherwise have loved, if I look at you and go, you need to watch this, you will then dislike it.
Well, it's a hurdle I have to get over.
And normally stuff isn't good enough to get over that hurdle.
No.
Is essentially the problem.
This show is so phenomenal that it cleared that hurdle almost, like, while I was capitulating. Like...
Okay, fine, I'll do... Oh my god, it's great!
So, that was a big thing that I had to get over. I don't think it necessarily diminished my experience. I just kind of felt dragged through it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I wanted to take this at a more natural pace. Too bad, bitch, we're going shopping.
Basically.
Whereas I didn't, because I liked watching this show, like, partially because I was DMing a Star Wars campaign, but I like watching it about the day it comes out. I normally don't catch spoilers, and even if I did, at this point in my life, I don't care nearly as much about them as I used to.
It has diminished for me. It's done a lot to decrease the experience. I think the worst part that still exists is if I get, like, an actual surprise spoiler. Like a plot twist or something.
Like Snape kills Dumbledore.
Sure. Which I did have.
Yeah.
Thanks to a radio program, of all things. Usually what would happen is I would be perusing Twitter at 4 a.m, happen to glance over at the trending bar that I can't get rid of, and it says things like #Boba Fett. Gee, I wonder why that's trending. Couldn't have anything to do with the episode of The Mandalorian that just dropped, I'm sure.
Yeah, I maintain this is your own fault for going to Twitter.
Well, it's fucking 4 a.m. Like, this... I have to imagine it's COVID, right? Because
everyone's home.
Everyone's home. So, like, usually I don't have to deal with 4 a.m. when the episode drops. Here's your fucking trending. At least you give me 6 hours, but no.
No.
I'm not used to having to gird my loins against this shit like that.
But we should probably also talk about, the season of The Mandalorian.
Yeah, I'm just kind of, wanted to get a little build up in there so you guys can maybe understand where I was coming from. And in some of these things, I was already kind of in a bad mood.
For other reasons. The season starts out on Tatooine, which is great. Well, technically it starts out on another planet that exists solely for Din Djarin, the Mandalorian, who I will be referring to as Mando for most of this, because in my head that's his name.
That's what he goes by.
Yeah. It exists for him to kick some ass and then go to Tatooine. And it's a really fun... The first episode's really fun and cool. It is a fun little jaunt through... Not... the original trilogy Tatooine, or even necessarily the prequel Tatooine. You got more of that in the first season. This is kind of a jaunt through the Tatooine lore, like the deep lore of the various video games and novels and stuff, there's a fucking crate dragon in this episode. And it makes the crate dragon noise. And I say that specifically because I don't care what noise you think I'm talking about. The crate dragon in this episode makes various different noises at different points that are all the noises George Lucas made Obi-Wan make in the various cuts of A New Hope and the noises from the video games. They went through and got all of them.
That's good shit.
Oh, man.
That's something this series does that's so fantastic, is they give a shit.
Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni clearly... And this one was written and directed by Favreau, which makes sense. But they clearly know what the fuck... They love Star Wars. This, JJ, is what it looks like when someone loves Star Wars.
Overall, pound for pound, and I need to express that specifically, honestly, that might be the best episode of this season. Overall, pound for pound.
I don't know what pound for pound means in this context.
That is to say that while Mark Henry might be able to bend a frying pan,
right,
he is a big man made of big, or was when he was in his prime. Whereas Cesaro might not be able to bend a frying pan, but oh my god, is he strong for being the size he is.
So, they're all roughly the same length, I think.
What I'm saying
for
is...
being that there was a lot less weighty shit dropped in this episode,
yes.
It was the highest quality for being ultimately a fun sort of episode that mostly exists to be a cool bunch of fan stuff, a cool bunch of stuff to make the fans happy in the first season, be really exciting, look really cool, and set up stuff later in the season. Yeah. That's what the episode exists to do. It does it well, and it does it really well. Also, we got to see what goes inside those ice cream makers, and I'm pretty jazzed about it.
There was a lot of, it really set us up to go, this is going to be a very fan servicey season.
And, yeah, it was. More than the first season by a fair amount. But that's a natural transition, I think, into the second episode, which was not fan servicey at all. It was this, while being a fan servicey season of this show was also really not afraid to take shit in some new directions.
Yeah, this was a cool one.
This was a bottle episode for the most part.
It felt very sci-fi serial.
Yeah, this...
Well, and there's a delightful thing that this episode sets up for the final episode of the season.
Really?
Yes, because those guys in those X-Wing fighters helped out Mando at the end of the day.
Yeah, they did. They were good guys.
So when an X-Wing fighter showed up later...
You could have gone, oh, maybe it's those guys, if you had never seen a Star Wars.
Point of fact, I've never seen a Star Wars, and I thought, well, maybe it's one of those guys. We'll get to that a little later.
Oh, trust me. You're going to get to do your dance. But anyway.
You're right, there's not much to say about this.
No, it was just a new direction.
We got some sweet, hot, naked frog lady action, though. Spicy-ass stuff, Disney Plus.
They kept it PG, neck up. When it was time to get out of the pool, she went and tongued her clothes over to her.
I mean, but it was just tantalizing.
But, it was just a fun episode that the internet got mad at because Baby Yoda was eating frog eggs. He was eating, big caviar. He's a little carnivore baby. What are you gonna do? He's got big caviar. He's gonna eat the big caviar.
Drives me insane.
He felt like that was Baby Yoda as Cat, the strongest he's been the entire time.
Well, he ate a whole fucking live frog last season. Nobody gave a shit.
Well, no, but he was a cat.
Yeah.
It was very right down to the no. Now remember what we talked about. But it was a very fun episode. Not a lot happened. There were some cool creatures in it. There was some cool world building. We got to see sort of that space travel that is not hyperspace is definitely a thing people do in Star Wars because it's not really covered much.
No.
But
it's super inefficient.
Super inefficient and slow as fuck.
Yeah. Everything's really far apart.
because it's space, and space is empty.
Unless it's the Rise of Skywalker, then every planet is just clustered around fucking...
God, I wish that that's what they established, that all this shit was like three galactic fucking hours from itself. But no, they established where all those planets are, and they're really far apart. No, we're talking about the Mandalorian.
Yeah.
But, like, that's a great contrast. They show that space travel takes a fucking long time, especially if you don't have a hyperdrive. And that's the whole episode, essentially. And there's cool ice spiders. It was fun, but it wasn't like it wasn't heavy. It was they start you off light. Shit gets heavier as the season goes on. Next episode?
Next episode, we enter into the I don't give a shit about the animated series territory.
Yep, we do. I've seen maybe half a season of the Clone Wars cartoon. I've seen none of Rebels. Well, not, like, haven't watched the episodes. But when I realized in season 1 of The Mandalorian who made The Mandalorian, I went out of my way to go and find all of the important bits of lore from the Clone Wars, absorb it through the wiki and watching various clips on YouTube that I felt would be important to have the emotional context for. Because unfortunately I can't watch the Clone Wars TV series. It is very well made. It is very well written. It has very important and well done plot points that make the Star Wars prequels, even though they are better on rewatch, it makes them even better. It fills in some gaps and makes them better, makes the story better. It is almost universally an improving force in Star Wars. The problem is it's also a children's cartoon. And unlike some other children's cartoons that I can watch, for whatever reason, I cannot stand it. I cannot stand the parts of that show that are clearly, this cartoon is for children. We are going to make some things very simple and have some people talk in very simple ways. Because this cartoon is for fucking children. And I respect that, but I hate it and can't watch it. It makes my teeth grind. So I went and I mined it for lore. So I do care about the prequel stuff, the prequel cartoons, the Clone Wars, Rebels, because I went and made a fucking effort to go learn about them. So when halfway through this new episode, in the middle of fighting some... God, what were they?
What?
The Mando.
The guys on the boat.
Yeah, what kind of aliens were they?
They were Quarians. Quarian?
The Q ones.
Yeah.
I can't remember. It's not Quarians, that's Mass Effect. But
Oh, no, you're right. Quarren, I think, then.
Quarren, yeah. They were Quarren. Some Quarren fishermen who were dickheads, I guess, for no reason.
Free Beskar.
Free Beskar. That's fair.
That's not dickheads for no reason. That's dickheads for, I guess I'm retired forever now.
That's, you know what? You got me. You got me. So, in the middle of fighting them, fucking Bo-Katan from, that is to say, Death Watch Bo-Katan shows up, and basically the thrust of the episode is Mando has to help Bo-Katan for reasons to get the next step in finding a Jedi. Because for those of you who may have watched the Clone Wars cartoon, there is a Jedi that Bo-Katan knows, who made it through the end of Revenge of the Sith. Anyway, the episode itself was fine.
Yeah,
and
I agree. It had some decent action to it. This one was a softer for me. Like,
this one was, you felt the approaching evil. And
well, I mean, it went okay. So, like, I wasn't that worried about it at the time. But
I like, because it becomes, the spoilers, it becomes clear later in the season, but I like that Bo-Katan isn't introduced as like, hey, here's Mando's new best friend, Bo-Katan. That's another Mandalorian. They're going to get along great. She's introduced as an antagonistic figure. Very intentional.
I mean, she's like, I feel like she's very gray in that sense. She's not just like a bitch for no reason.
But like, not an ally. More like a useful contact.
Right. And having seen the entire season, I feel much more comfortable with it. But like, I don't know who this person is other than character from beloved series that I didn't grow up with. So, like, the internet whatever form of social media, mostly Reddit, that I happen to come across, hyping themselves up about Bo-Katan, gets Bo-Katan, you guys, Bo-Katan, greatest character ever, Bo-Katan. And I'm going, well, this lady seems kind of like a bit of a bitch.
What he didn't know was kind of a bit of a bitch is exactly what the people who were used to Bo-Katan wanted. Because that is, as I have gathered, her entire character.
So, like, I felt like I was missing something, and it wasn't... I feel like it's reasonable to ask you have seen at least the original trilogy if you're going to watch a Star Wars TV show.
I feel like that is an opinion one could have. It's not one I share. I feel like you can enjoy this show if you've not seen a Star Wars.
I would agree with that in general. There are certain things that are going to make you less hype.
Yes, but you will still enjoy the central narrative.
For this, I felt confused. Just because of the way the focus kept shifting back to her in a way that felt like directorially this is important, but I had no fucking clue why. And instead of going, oh man, I wonder what her deal is, it was presented more like, y'all already know what her deal is. You're in on the thing. And I'm not.
See, but that's the thing. As someone who, although I have mind for lore, didn't watch the show, I disagree. I don't feel like it was presented that way. I feel like it was presented very much of, I wonder what her deal is, because the point of view character, Mando, wonders what her deal is. Or is violently uninterested in her deal.
Mando this season was basically, I don't know what's going on, but I'm just doing my best, guys.
Like, one of the two. But, like, I don't feel like they, beyond the point they do with every already established canon character, everyone from Boba Fett to Bo-Katan to Bo to Babu Frick, everyone who will ever show up in this show, they will, to a certain extent, go, I mean, if you know, you know. But they also do a good job of introducing them in series. And I feel like this episode does a good job of that.
I guess. I would have to watch it again, but I've already seen it, so I can't.
You'd have to watch it for the first time again?
Yeah, and be paying specific attention for this, because I just felt like I don't know who the fuck these people are, and I feel like I should. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I understand.
Now, I didn't have that same problem in the future, and that bears mentioning because I felt a lot less hopeful about that, but we have an episode to get through before then. I would say this coming one is the worst episode of the season, but that's not saying it's a bad episode.
Isn't the next one with...
the one directed by Carl Weathers.
Oh, no, the one I just forgot happened.
Yeah.
Oh. That doesn't speak super well of it.
It was okay. They said the M word, by which I mean they literally said the M word.
Don't say the M word. You're just making me say midichlorians in my head. Say it, you coward!
I laughed. I thought this was a cool little, like, heisty episode.
No, it was fine. Remembering it now, it has that cool car chase scene, and
it brings back Horatio Sands.
It brings back Horatio Sands, who's excellent. What a fun little return. The Mando has become such an inclusive home for, hey everybody, here's your favorite Star Wars character. It's doing returns from itself now.
And it gave us a reason to bring Cara Dune back into things. So.
Yeah, it introduces Cara Dune again, which is important later. Mm-hmm. This is the episode to reintroduce Cara Dune in the same way the previous episode was to introduce Bo-Katan.
Yes.
And it's a fine episode, but you're right. It's not bad. It's good, but it's probably the worst episode of the season just because I forgot it existed.
It lists right out.
It does. It lists right out.
That's all I have to say. I can't wait for the toy of Jeans guy.
Jeans guy. They edited him out quick.
Oh, did they? Okay.
Oh, he gone. He been gone. He was gone fucking 6 hours after premiere. He was gone by the time I watched the episode.
Fantastic. I didn't see him, so I just saw it like on the internet after the fact. But yeah, moving swiftly along, the next episode was the one I was least looking forward to.
Yes, because this is the one that I heard from the because we had both kind of called this.
Sure.
That this was going to be, because as you know, if you watch season 1 or if you know The Mandalorian at all, We haven't really covered the premise, but fucking you've watched it. Mando's whole deal is he's trying to get his little Yodito friend, Baby Yoda, as he is mimetically known, the child, to a Jedi for training, to his people. That's his quest. We both called that it was going to be Ahsoka. Because Dave Filoni is involved in the show. Of course it's going to be Ahsoka.
I mean, she was one of the only few people left alive. It just made sense. And then, like, super soon after the season ended, they cast her.
Yeah.
So.
And, like, it was always going to be that. So we both sort of called that even before they cast Rosario Dawson. This is the episode where she finally shows up. I have seen a bunch of the Clone Wars, about half a season. And I've seen bits of later seasons, and I've seen, like, important, scenes on various YouTubes. I like Ahsoka as a character. I like her arc. I like how she chose to leave the Jedi Order because she saw that they were assholes and they did her bad, they did her wrong. And when they were like, oh, we did you wrong. And then Mace Windu, the actual worst Jedi ever, goes, yeah, we did you wrong, but it was a test from the Force. Whatever, we're perfect. She was like, you know what? Fuck you guys. I'm out. And then she just never joined again. She just wasn't a Jedi from that point. That's a really cool character choice.
Yeah, it seems like a character I would like.
But boy howdy, did I have to hear a lot about how much you did not think this was going to go well.
I have a problem, Ultimo Dragon. I may have talked about it in the past, but we'll talk about it in brief here now, because this is not Psychoanalyze White, the podcast. I immediately have a negative reaction about a character who has a certain number of waifu points.
Yeah, basically, if there is a certain threshold beyond which a character is a waifu to the fan base that enjoys that character, White will just like them less than otherwise.
Yeah, it's multiplicative.
Yeah, every point beyond that threshold, it has an inverse relationship with the maximum amount of like that character gets to have.
So I would say among the youngest generation of internet-wielding fans that I interact with, the Clone Wars show being so formative for them during that years when you get a waifu.
Yeah, during the years when I was a kid, that I got a crush on Wednesday Addams from Addams Family Values. During that same formative time frame, this Ahsoka was right there being super cool and badass and having lightsabers. I mean, yeah, that's understandable, but it does mean, unfortunately, that you will like her less.
I don't know how to turn it off. I'd like to, but it's just how it works. It has befallen many other characters in the past.
It will befall many characters in the future.
Yeah, we'll figure out how to switch it off, but I was not looking forward to it. And I think it's because on one hand, it is hard to discuss such a beloved character with any amount of criticism or not being on the train without being tied up, tarred, feathered, and burnt at the stake. Please see Aaron Hansen talking about a video game.
That's fair.
2, I don't like being told what my opinion is before I have it.
Yeah, that's the chief motivator behind you should watch this now.
Yeah, it's a lot of it. Shut the fuck up and let me make my own decisions. I'm not 5 anymore. You don't need to tell me to eat my peas. Give me a can of peas and I'll eat them when it's time to eat peas. I love peas. Stop ruining peas for me. Fucking pea lobbyists. But it's also like, it's that hype build, right? Like, my mom likes to tell the story, and I don't know why I can't think of a single time this has happened to me, despite the fact that it happens all the time. When she went to go see Dragonheart with Sean Connery, it was a great movie. She loved it, but like, she didn't love it as much as she could have because a friend of hers was like, "Oh, it's so good." So she saw it and was like, "Yeah, that was good. I had a lot of fun."
Hype backlash is a thing.
It is a thing. And like, when you have a character that's that atomic,
at a certain point, if too many people like John Cena, you start booing John Cena.
Exactly. I don't think I could see the Joker movie and enjoy it as much as I might have if I'd seen it in a vacuum.
Same. Might not be for the same reason, but same.
It might not be for the same reason, but like, you know, just an example of that.
But in this episode, we see in live action, played by Rosario Dawson, with smaller, I looked it up, they are also called Leku
Okay.
for her race. But smaller head tentacles made, again, I also looked it up, they made them smaller because they made a version which was accurate to her most, oldest depiction on Rebels when she was already an adult. They were incredibly uncomfortable and hard to do stunts in, so they made them smaller. Get over it, nerds.
I want Rebels, Clone Wars realistic Count Dooku.
You want him to be a fucking pyramid?
A pyramid, yes. And I want him to yell at Obi-Wan in the new Obi-Wan series.
You know what? I think they did that just because they didn't have Christopher Lee doing the voice, so they needed to get that level of gravitas off in some other ways, so they made him fucking shaped like a rectangle.
I think they did that because Jendy Tartakovsky draws
Weird
shaped people. And they
Weird.
couldn't
He
divorce
draws
themselves from
weird. But, like, they were hard. The head tentacles were hard to do stunts in, so they made them smaller. Deal.
What a weird thing to nitpick
People were
over.
so mad. I looked it up. They were very upset. I don't get it. Anyway.
Like, how could you watch that and not see her visibly going, I am uncomfortable? This hat is big.
It's a big fucking hat. I feel stupid. But, it's a really cool episode.
Yeah.
It was the best episode of the season.
I would say, stylistically.
The finale was also really good.
Again, see, this is where we're clashing with the first episode. I would say for all it does, the first episode, all-rounder, best shot. That's your Super Mario. That's your fucking Sonic the Hedgehog.
Whereas for me, I loved the finale. The finale was a really tight, thing that happened and had some cool shit in it. But this is probably the best episode of the show.
Stylistically, thematically, this is first of all the episode that most evokes the first season.
Yes.
And secondly, it is... If it had said at the end it was directed by Quentin Tarantino, the only reason I wouldn't have believed him is because of the lack of feet. Because this is a samurai western.
I feel like shoeless Ahsoka would have made you explode.
I would have...
I feel like you would have just fucking fire would have bloomed and a red ring would have come soaring into the window.
The floor below you would have started glowing as you slept, and you would have been like, he's seen the episode.
He saw Ahsoka feet pics. But this was, for me, if you had to boil Star Wars, what makes Star Wars cool down to one episode's length of time, you would get this episode of Star Wars.
It is the two things that inspired Star Wars in the first place. Samurai movies, westerns.
Yes, it is a spaghetti western mixed with a fucking Kurosawa movie.
And they do it
and
very
it's
well.
So well done. As someone who likes Ahsoka just fine, it's not that she's there, it's that a Jedi is there.
You could have had literally any other Jedi in her place, it doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah, she's not a part of the Order anymore, and that comes through in the character. Like, she makes decisions that make sense because of that, and because of other things that happen, that they stick with the character. They respect the character building, which I really love in almost everything in fiction. But, it's because a Jedi was there. A samurai was there. Mm-hmm. And it's just such a good fucking episode of this show. And, to be fair, part of it is that there are HK assassin droids in it. I'm not going to lie to you and pretend like that's not part of it.
Space raccoons. There were space raccoons.
There were space raccoons. It does good world building, it does excellent respecting of the source material, and it is thematically Star Wars.
And it was Morrowind brown.
Yeah.
They did all that in a fucking Morrowind brown setting.
They did all that in Morrowind, for all that matters.
Just outside of Seydanine, fucking...
Right down to there being a weird imperial city that's there. We gotta deal with that, I guess. And mostly taking place in the woods. If they'd fought cliff racers, I wouldn't have been surprised. But,
fucking Mando, hold on. Hold on, I can shoot it. Rah! Rah!
But, like, that's a part of it, obviously, for me, but it's such a good episode of that fucking show. It's so good. And again, part of this podcast has now become The Boy Yells at People on the Internet. People were mad about this episode. That Ahsoka didn't fucking clown the lady at the end during the end fight. Have you guys just never watched a samurai movie? Ever? Also, there are very actually good in-character reasons why she didn't clown that character. But, I mean, just pulling back, doyalistically, what's wrong with you? Why would that be a good climax to the episode?
Is it time for me to put on my Sig Haig hat?
By all means, sir.
And ripping pepperonis, Sid Haig. It's a fucking movie.
I could argue with you like a complete nerd. I could push up my glasses and do a really nasal voice and explain to you why it makes absolute sense that was a pretty even fight. I'm not going to do that because you don't deserve it. Moving on.
I feel like the next episode was maybe the second worst of the season.
You know what? Yeah.
My nitpicks aside,
you know what? No, this one was the worst. The other one its only sin was being fun, good, not the most memorable. This actively had bad writing in it.
You know, you're right. I remember now. Fucking, oh my god.
This was the worst episode of the season. It's the only episode I would describe as bad. And not because the Mandalorian doesn't win, but because of how he doesn't win, when it would be easily fixable. This episode of The Mandalorian is the only episode that made Rise of Skywalker style, you could have easily done this better, mistakes. And it really frustrated me.
But for most people, the fact that Fett puts the armor back on and goes around kicking ass more than made up for that bad writing.
I wasn't 12 enough to enjoy it.
Yes.
That's not a dig against the episode. I feel like that's a failing on my part. Boba Fett showed up, and he put on the Boba Fett armor, and then he fucking wrecked some fools with a gaffy stick, and I wasn't 12 enough to enjoy it. I failed this episode. But the episode had writing problems. Pretty serious ones that would have been easily fixable.
Yeah.
And I love this show. I love this show a lot. I loved every episode except this one. But you gotta call them fair. You gotta call strikes and fouls. This was not a good episode of this show.
It was basically just one long fight.
And not a very well choreographed or blocked fight that didn't have a lot of good character-driven choices in it. For everyone, for Mando, for Din, Boba Fett and the Cavalry. I don't remember her name in that series.
Fennec,
sure.
I like her. I like her coming back. That was
Fennec Shan. Oh, she's. I apologize that I don't remember this actress's name. I really like her. But I think it's May Wen or something like that. But Fennec, the actress
Ming-Na Wen.
Yeah. Ming-Na Wen is incredibly talented, and I really loved seeing her the first season. I was sad she was a one-shot sort of person, and then Boba Fett showed up. But, like, I'm really glad they brought her back too, and I'm glad, spoilers for later, that she's going to be around in the future.
Next episode was the one that I was still watching with my hand over the screen. More accurately, the rest of the window. But, actually, I really liked this episode. This felt like a soldier episode. You know how the movie Dog Soldiers says it's not a werewolf movie, it's an army movie with werewolves? This episode of The Mandalorian felt like an army episode with space guys.
I was worried you were going to hate this episode because you typically don't give a shit about army stories. You don't give a shit about military stories.
I like really well-crafted, personal, the soldier struggle story. I love the Metal Gear series, as ridiculous as it is, and because the stories are personal.
That's why this episode is good.
Yes, it's phenomenal.
Because it's such a good... One, it brings back a character I fucking loved from the first season. Even though he wasn't acting. He was playing Space Bill Burr, and
still is.
No! In this episode, he's acting.
Well, in the first part, he's still playing Space Bill Burr.
He actually told a story about how he was, he took the job in Star Wars as Miggs Mayfield. Bill Burr did. He's in this episode, obviously. Just to fuck with his friends. He has all these friends who love Star Wars, and he always hated Star Wars, could never get into it. has watched maybe one movie. He kind of liked Empire. Kind of. He didn't even like it that much. So he always shits on it. He would shit on it in his podcast. He would shit on it in his comedy routines. And he had all these friends who love Star Wars and would give their right ball to be in Star Wars. And then Jon Favreau essentially went, wouldn't it be really funny if I cast you in Star Wars because of how much you shit on it? And he was like, I don't know, man. I don't like the movies. That feels disrespectful. And his wife went, what are you, stupid? So he took the job, and then he immediately called one of his best friends who like had met someone very famous in baseball and rubbed it in his face. Was like, yeah, I'm living your dream, click. And then he goes to set, and like he's still not taking it super seriously. He's like, whatever, I'm in a goofy outfit. All these other people are in goofy outfits. They got fucking, what was it? Poor Clancy's dressed up like Satan. And then they start just acting him off the fucking stage, and he gets really embarrassed.
Oh, wow.
Because he's just, oh my god, I am getting fucking blown out of the room. I am super embarrassed right now. So when he came back, like, he fucking put in the work to get a good, solid character through. And it shows.
I think in the more serious parts, it does show. 100%. I agree with that. But there was very Bill Burr in him razzing Mando about his helmet.
Well, I mean, he is still the same guy.
Yeah, like...
He's Space Bill Burr. Space Bill also happened to have incredibly severe PTSD. Because, and this is not me speaking out of my ass, I went to, like, communities of soldiers and people who were in the military. Apparently, the scene where Mayfield is talking to his former commanding officer is one of the most hauntingly realistic portrayals of PTSD in fiction.
Oh, I would have believed it.
There are people who straight up went, like I saw, and these were in like soldier communities, not Star Wars communities, who had seen the show, who said that the look in his eyes right before he shoots his former commander, I've seen that look. It was terrifying. I had to pause the episode.
I want to go back and rewatch it because of the way the final episode played out, so that I can actually watch that scene in full, because I could hear without seeing the screen, and it wasn't like I was doing something else like I often do. I just,
you have a thing that you are very consistent about. In fiction, there are a lot of characters who don't show their face, who are very serious about that, because it serves as a good character trait and a good metaphorical lens for certain aspects of reality. Spork never looks. As an example, Watch Dogs 2. There's a scene where one of the characters named Wrench. He has his mask stolen from him by the antagonists. You can look. You can finagle the camera around to see what Wrench's face looks like. I watched him play that scene. He didn't. In the first season, when Mando's helmet was removed, you averted your eyes.
I put my hand over the part of the screen he was on.
Because I understand why.
They're fictional, but like I have.
It's a level of respect.
Exactly. It goes into Lucha Libre and the honored traditions there.
You respect the mask.
At the end of the day, I get why they do it, because most people watching show do not have this. So
they want to see actor face.
They want to see actor
and a
face.
lot of actors really want to be given the chance to emote with their face.
Sure, exactly, yeah, and I respect that on both sides. I don't have any frustrations with that, but
for your own self, you don't look.
I don't.
Whereas, like, now, because of what happens in the finale, you can go back and enjoy that. Because also, Pedro Pascal does amazing work in that scene, because he plays someone who has never in their life learned how to control their facial expressions.
Yeah. I didn't notice it until I saw him maskless at the end of the final episode, which is the next one we're about to discuss. How much he is killing his own emoting through his voice the entire time. I've seen Pedro Pascal in a lot of stuff. I have accidentally followed his career since MTV's Undressed. He emotes. He's full of character. He's full of life.
He's a very charismatic dude.
But I did not... Mando was Mando, and I always was like, how? That's so weird to me that's who's playing that character.
It's so out against type for him.
Yeah, and he does such a great job of being just kind of frozen and stilted, but not in an inhuman way. It is very warm.
And like he in this episode and in the next one, when he has his helmet off, he's playing someone who has never in his life had to learn how to school his face.
Yeah.
Just someone who wears their whole face journey right there on the front because he's never had to learn not to. And that's a hard act to pull off without looking goofy, and he does it, and it's super impressive. And I actually did literally watch this episode twice.
At the very least, I will rewatch those scenes
because it's not as pure Star Wars as episode chapter 13, The Jedi. But this, like the scene with Mayfield, like talking to his old commanding officer, is absurdly good acting. It is a fucking... They say comedians often make the best dramatic actors. And Bill Burr kind of proves why that's a saying. Because it's so good. And it's not overstated. He's not screaming. He's not yelling. But he so convincingly portrays post-traumatic stress disorder that I, a complete moron who has no experience with that sort of thing, could see it.
You basically get two kind of guys who go into the military. The kind that Bill Burr is playing are the ones that I have known the most in real life. And yes.
It's just such a good job. Rip Mayfield. Rip.
Yeah, it's a shame what happened to him.
Yeah, I mean, like, he went out like a hero.
Yes.
But
he's totally dead forever.
Definitely. Moving right along.
This is the episode I watched twice.
I watched a certain part of it twice. I'm not going to sit here and lie.
Above and beyond everything else, for me, this is my favorite episode of the season. It bookends nicely with the first one by going, this is everything Star Wars, and like smooshing it together, but with the drama of the entire season behind it.
Yeah, that's true. It is a very good bookend with the first episode. My favorite is probably The Jedi still. It's
I respect
so
that.
good.
I think it's...
But this is if it's not my favorite, it's number 2.
And it's not just for the reason that I'm going to crow about.
I mean, yeah. Not same, but also, yeah.
Because the opening scene is so good. I am so happy that they put a realistically shitty asshole in Star Wars. The guy in the ship who's antagonizing Cara Dune. Who shoots his co-pilot because he's a fucking asshole. He's...
the guy who... What a crazy dickhead. Like, why would you do that?
Oh, and I've met people like this.
Who, with their final breath, are just gonna... You know what? I'm dead anyway. I'm gonna make this as awful for you as possible. Shit. You know what? I say that a couple years ago, I was that guy.
I mean, sure.
Not... Obviously, I wasn't a death cultist. But, I was
we
someone...
miss you in the death cult.
I was someone who, if faced with basically guaranteed death, I'm just going to make that as awful for you as possible. I'm going to try and say as much hurtful shit as I can on the way out, because fuck you.
I don't know. I mean, like,
I'm not that guy anymore.
There's a small part of that I can admire, because, okay, my body may die, but I'll be living rent-free in your head for the rest of eternity.
And you can tell that's what that guy was doing. Like, a bunch of what he said was clearly... Fuck you. I know I'm murked here. I know it. I'm not getting out of this. I'm going to hurt you as much as possible.
I think there was also the slight smug superiority complex that comes with somebody who would sign up voluntarily with the Empire of, I am going to talk you out of this because I'm better than you.
I want that to be the case because it makes Kara shooting him more satisfying. I don't think so.
¿Por qué no las dos?
¿Por qué no las dos?
But that's first, okay? Second, great fight scenes. This episode was also mostly just fight scenes, but they were really
is a great contrast. This is also one big fight, but incredibly well blocked and choreographed, and the emotional stakes were much more well established, and just altogether better.
There is also Moff Gideon. This is the first time we've really seen him turn loose as a character. He established himself last season in the final episode, but this is the first time
we see him stressed in a way that isn't currently being shot at. Like how he performs under pressure, and he didn't disappoint.
fantastic, so canny and nasty. Not as bad as the first guy.
Canny and nasty and petty.
Yeah.
The kind of petty you want an Imperial officer to be. Moff Gideon is what Hux should have been.
Sure. Yeah, I agree with that. He's very good as an antagonist.
Because he's still a shitty, petty dickhead.
Yes.
Like, he's not Darth Vader. As much as the character's motivation is clearly that he wants to be Darth Vader, he's not Darth Vader. He's not gravitas. He's not serious. He is ultimately a petty dickhead. But he does it the right way. He does it in a way that looks believable for someone who is that important.
He's not even Kylo Ren, who feels owed a legacy and betrayed.
He's not a child.
Yeah, he's not a child. He's Starscream if Megatron was already dead.
Yeah, you know what? That's exactly it.
And
he's big Starscream energy.
He's so good at it.
Right down that is the smug superiority of the Empire. Him talking to Din.
Oh, yeah.
Where he thought, the dude walks into the room in full Beskar armor, and he thought he could get the jump on him and stab him in the back. Did you think the armor on the back wasn't Beskar, dumbass?
For the shot. The other thing I really liked was the big character moment that makes Mando finally, like, removing his helmet and being okay with that, different from when he's had to under duress before.
Or when he did it as a sacrifice to get his son back. This isn't a sacrifice. This isn't something he's having to... this isn't a hurt he's having to do himself and his beliefs for the purposes of something he finds ultimately more important, his family. This is a choice he's making for the purposes of his family. And it's a very important distinction, even if it sounds subtle.
I don't even know that if it's necessarily... I mean, like, the reason he does it ultimately, in the moment, is for his family, but I feel like there's a greater psychological, sociological reason behind it.
They build up the whole season, him getting separated from, and separating himself from the ultimately fairly cultish roots he has as a child of Death Watch.
Sure. But there's a part of it I really like that doesn't turn him in the opposite direction. A lot of this season, as in the first season, but even more so from people that you might otherwise respect, Mando gets made fun of for the helmet. Especially and including Bo-Katan, who was like, oh yeah, that was a dumb thing I set up. That it's stupid. Don't do that.
You're a child of the Watch. You're a weird Orthodox. No, we don't do that. That's not something real Mandalorians like me, Bo-Katan. I'm the only one who counts. Like, she gives him shit for it. Even though you were one of the people, you were the right-hand man for the leader of Death Watch. Last I fucking checked.
But even if you, like me, don't know that shit, here in this final episode, the whole thing with the Darksaber happens. Mando wins it off of, I guess it's like the wand in Harry Potter. Wins it off of Gideon.
It's... The importance of winning the Darksaber in combat is because it is a Mandalorian artifact.
Right.
Winning it in combat proves your superiority. It proves your right to be Mandalore. And apparently at one point, Moff Gideon kicked Bo-Katan's ass and took it. Because otherwise he doesn't have it. She doesn't need to get him to surrender. If he stole it, she just needs to get it back. Those are the rules.
Or somebody else kicked her ass and he kicked their ass.
Yeah, like he owned it. Like he actually won a fight for it. Because that's the only reason she would respect the transfer in the first place. And then Mando beats his ass and takes it, so Mando is Mandalore now. As far as Bo-Katan's sect of Mandalorianism is concerned. Ultimately, the rest of Death Watch. But, like, how to put this?
The only other Mandalorian on the ship at this point is Sasha Banks.
God, I wish I could take her more seriously, but I can't.
I thought she was fine.
And Sasha Banks is clearly, like, that's her thing. Like, Sasha Banks is clearly, they're bros. They're best bros.
Yeah, she's here for Bo-Katan, not for the stories. She doesn't give a shit.
Yeah, so, like, if Bo-Katan just took... Mando tries to give her the Darksaber. And then Moff Gideon gets to be, like, fucking smug snake just on the floor. Lo, 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 lo.
She won't take it from you. You played right into my hand, totally.
By beating me in a fight that I wanted to win. Whatever, I'm taking what I can get. At least I get to laugh at Bo-Katan. But she won't take it from Mando. It's like, oh, you have to win in combat. So he goes, because he's a bounty hunter. He doesn't give a shit about the story of his martial prowess. Ultimately, for being a Mandalorian, he's not very Mandalorian. So he just goes, I yield. Here, take the fucking thing.
I think it's more that he doesn't have any desire to lead. He doesn't have any desire to rebuild. In some ways, it would negate the sacrifices that the people on the planet we started on made for him. Yes, thank you. Made for him. Because, what am I assuming, this weird fucking role? In going along with what Bo-Katan believes about this dumb shit, am I accepting that
her version of things is right and not the people who sacrificed their lives to protect me?
Yeah, and furthermore, God, I don't care. This is not what I fucking care. I
don't give a shit about the planet. I don't give a shit about this stupid fucking stick. I have my boy. I want out of this stupid bullshit. Take your stupid glowy stick and go. And she won't take it. After giving him so much shit earlier in the season. It is such a good establishing moment for her.
It shows him, it shows Mando that she ascribes to her own shit as it suits her.
She ascribes to her shit as firmly as he ascribed to his previously, and seeing someone else do it goes, oh my God, is this how people have been seeing me? Is this what I look like?
It takes the, is this worth it?
Yeah.
Do we need to do this dance? It's not like we're in front of a crowd of screaming Mandalorians who are waiting for blood. There's one other person here who counts.
And she's your bro. Can we please just move along? And that, I think, is part of what gives him, the strength to make the ultimate choice to say goodbye to his son properly.
And to remove his helmet and to make some new considerations about his life. That was a wonderful build throughout the whole season. I kind of thought that's what they were going toward.
Yeah, same.
And I feel like they
earned it.
Yeah, they really earned it.
I was real, because eventually, Pedro Pascal's going to want to, be in the show. But so I feel like they had to get there, and they earned it. I like how long it took.
Yeah.
But if he's mostly out of his helmet next season, I'm not going to be upset.
No, same.
I did notice that once Boba put the helmet on, he mostly kept it on.
I would.
I'm Boba Fett,
Yeah, if I got my Boba Fett hat back, I'd be like, fuck that shit.
All right, so now that we've jabbered on about this for the length of an episode of the show, go ahead and do your dance.
I have one criticism to make about this episode. And
Okay.
one more compliment. Death Troopers, they did fantastically.
Yeah.
They did a great job of, without having to have one of the main characters of the show body them all, getting rid of the threat and then reestablishing them as a strong threat. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well used. I liked their Daft Punk soundtrack.
Yeah, same.
The criticism I have is Boba Fett, for some reason, fucked right off. If Fennec had been with him, I understand. He did his deal. Goodbye. Fennec wasn't.
No.
Where did you go, Boba Fett? Come back. What the fuck?
You probably came back later.
I mean, sure, because, but...
I saw it placed online as if this were a tabletop RPG, that player suddenly had to leave.
Yeah. I mean, and it's hyperspace, so, you get fucking solar systems away and they go, oh shit, I left Fennec back there. Hold on, turn around.
That was probably part of the plan. Get away so that you can come back later and be alright out. They were clearly planning on crashing the shuttle.
Oh, well, no, Bo-Katan wanted it. It was going to be her... Or the shuttle. Okay,
yeah.
no, okay.
Yeah, they were clearly planning on crashing the shuttle. So, he's...
You know me. I like to crash Star Destroyers into stuff, so...
You can sympathize with that part of the plan.
So... It was after the tragedy episode.
Honestly, though, part of the reason Boba Fett fucked right off is because, boy, would that have been awkward!
Woof. When it was after the tragedy episode, after Grogu's call went off, and I don't even remember the context of the conversation, but I think it was something along the lines of, I don't give a shit about all of this, Clone Wars series.
And there's a bunch of maybe people, Ezra or what have you, from the Clone Wars who could have been the person who answered the call to when Grogu, sent a call out through the Force. Hey, a baby Jedi here. Please pick me up. I'm done with soccer practice. So, like, there's a bunch of people from various, Clone Wars and Rebels who could have been the ones who answered the call. Ezra might have been interesting, actually. And then you said...
but all will be forgiven for all of this fan service I don't understand if they bring back my favorite character from Star Wars. And oh man, here comes that X-Wing. And I'm like, well, it's probably one of those guys from earlier coming to aid some fire support. Maybe they'll shoot the Death Watch guys. Oh, it's a Jedi. Well, I can see on the security cam footage that they got a white lightsaber. It's probably Ahsoka again. Go figures. Fucking Ahsoka. Oh, she's so great. But why does she only have one? Oh, it's green. Oh, he moves like, no.
Whereas, when we had the discussion, I literally just did not think this was going to happen.
No, you were like,
I didn't think they were going to do
that's
it.
ridiculous.
I was completely 100% confident. I literally went, man, I love that too, but we both know that's not going to happen.
Like, and it was
just
the most
matter of fact.
Like, the fridge is not made of cotton candy kind of matter of fact.
Like, I just really was 100% convinced they wouldn't. And I was very wrong, and I'm very happy about it.
Oh my god.
This is the Luke Skywalker I wanted from Last Jedi. This is Luke Skywalker. This! Yes! They did the Luke Skywalker version of fucking Darth Vader's hallway scene from Rogue One. He's just Luke Skywalker as a Jedi Knight, as a Jedi Master, fucking up everything in his path. A threat they went episodes and had their main character get just beat to shit by one, and Luke Skywalker killed like 20 of them motherfuckers without breaking his gate. That is Luke Skywalker.
We're going as far as to stunt on a couple of them.
Yeah, going as far as to like meme on them.
A lot of "I'll kill you later" energy on a few, and that last one where he was just like, yeah.
Alright, I'm done with my lightsaber. That's enough lightsaber for the day. I'm just gonna crush you with the Force. I could have done this to all of you. Moving on.
I like Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi. I like Luke Skywalker's. I like
Skywalker's overall arc in the new movies.
I am glad we get to see this version of Luke as well.
I would have preferred this version than the other thing.
He's far too old now.
Shut up.
If
Yoda can bounce, Skywalker can fight.
And he did.
Yeah.
And he won through being smarter.
God, he did. Oh, there's a reason I like his overall arc in those movies. But this is fucking Luke. This is the Luke Skywalker of the fucking books. This is the Luke Skywalker of the Legends universe. This is the hard motherfucker. I'm so happy. Yeah. They did such a good job.
It was amazing.
And
amazing.
Grogu willingly goes with him to be trained by him, and sometime in the next 20 years to leave the New Jedi Temple peacefully before Ben Solo gets upsetty. Sometime, he has 20 years, I figure he can manage it. But, like...
I feel like this is emblematic of what they have kind of hinted at about how they're not going to erase the sequel trilogy.
But shush.
They're just going to kind of move on with their lives.
But shush. Someone pointed out that Grogu would be an excellent bridge to a new Star Wars series set hundreds of years later.
Sure. I also feel like the people that are freaking out online that he's definitely one of the among the dead in Kylo Ren's
are dumb. There's like 20 years, and have you watched a Star Wars? No body, no death. Boba Fett is in this. No body, no death. Grogu's fine.
Speaking of which, we getting that Boba.
We getting that Boba tea, son.
As I understand it, from stuff that came out today as of recording.
Oh, okay. So I don't know this.
there's not going to be a season of Mandalorian next year, or if it comes, it might be a little later. They are filming the Boba Fett show, which is not the Mandalorian.
No, it's called The Book of Boba Fett.
Right. And then once that's done, Mandalorian season 3 will start filming.
Once
Which
they're
is
done
still
filming
Pedro
it?
Pascal. Yeah. Once they're done filming it. So I don't know if they're trying to have them both come out in December of next year or what. But
That was the initial time frame, but it might change, maybe early 2022.
sure, that's fine.
Yeah, it's fine, whatever. This was a really good... If this was the last episode of The Mandalorian, this tells a complete story.
It does. It does. And then you can go into comics and stuff to see what Mando gets up to after that.
Yeah, I mean, for the next season of Mandalorian, this does open shit up for it to be a very different show.
There are a lot of options you could take, and I'm here for pretty much all of them, except for Ahsoka Mando /fic.
Well, it wouldn't be /fic, unless she is slashing him.
They've generalized that term.
Oh, sorry, I'm way too old.
No, and I
I
am
am-
too,
do
because
not
I
speak-
understood what you meant.
Do not speak the deep magic to me, witch. I was there when it was written.
Yes, I was as well. Just not quite as there. It's just slash. It's for the...
No, I mean, I can see how that could be generalized.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's been and done. We jabbered on about this for a long ass time.
Longer. I didn't think we were gonna go episode by episode, but
Then you pulled up the episodes, and I was like, "Fuck it, why not?"
I didn't want to forget anything.
There you
Like
go.
the fucking Carl Weathers episode. He did a good job. Don't get me wrong.
It was a fun
fun.
episode. It's just
He
forget.
did better than Robert Rodriguez. Go figure.
Anyway, I think we're done here. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything's better when nerds talk about it.